Now, dating apps like Tinder have completely changed the way many of us get into relationships, offering up seemingly endless options at the swipe of a finger. But do those infinite possibilities come with a dark side? How do you know the person swiping at the other end of the phone is who they say they are? Well, according to a new study, 1 in 5 Tinder users are using the app despite already being in a committed relationship. And that might not be the worst of it. The researchers found that those people using Tinder who were already attached were more likely to exhibit darker personality traits, including psychopathic tendencies. We can talk to Michelle Thomas. She quit online dating after a disturbing encounter with a Tinder date. Dr. Becky Spellman is a psychologist who's treated women left traumatized by Tinder dates. Elizabeth Timmermans is a Tinder expert and the researcher behind the study. And we're also joined by Alice Riley, a Tinder user who's using the app to find a husband. We're also joined by Stacey Hollingworth. She got in touch with us a little bit earlier to tell us she met her soon-to-be husband on Tinder. I think you're getting married tomorrow. Is that right, Stacey?
Yeah, that's right, tomorrow.
Congratulations. We'll be with you in a moment. Thank you all for joining us. I want to come to you first of all, Elizabeth, because you are behind the latest research. Tell us more about what you've come up with, because you were specifically looking into users' motives and, as we say, the dark side of Tinder.
Yes, exactly. So we were mostly interested in, okay, if there is really like around 25% of people who are using Tinder that are in a committed relationship, then why are they using Tinder? So we looked at their motives first, and we also checked if they were different from the motives from single Tinder users. And we found that they had higher scores on using Tinder because they were curious about what the application is about. You know, Tinder has been around since 2014 outside of the US, and many people who have been in a relationship for longer than that, they don't really know what the fuss is about, and they are curious, so they download the app and they start swiping to see what it's all about. Now, if we look at other reasons, such as using Tinder for an ego boost because you want to know like how attractive you still are, or just as an entertainment tool, as a tool of distraction, or as a tool to find new casual sex partners, we did not find a difference for single Tinder users. So it seems like they're as likely to use Tinder for such motives as single users are, and they're significantly less likely to use it, for instance, for relationship seeking. So they seem to be less interested in actually finding a romantic partner, obviously because they already have one. And then we also looked at how the personality traits of people that are in a committed relationship are related to their Tinder motives and their outcomes. And we found that, for instance, people with a higher score on psychopathy, they are more likely to use Tinder to find casual sexual encounters, and they're also more likely to report a higher number of one-night stands. They're also less agreeable and less neurotic than people who have lower scores on psychopathy. On the sexual experience Tinder motive. And then interestingly, we also looked at narcissism, and people in a committed relationship who have a higher score on narcissism, they are actually more likely to use the app for an ego boost, which is also not very surprising, but it seems that they are longing for more social approval from single users to see how attractive they still are.
Okay, well, there's loads that you've given us to talk about. Thank you, Elizabeth. Michelle in the studio with us. You've come off Tinder after you had a particularly bad experience.
That's right.
What happened? Did you come in contact with someone in a relationship, psychopath? What was
not
it?
as far as I know.
Right.
I'm really fascinated by Elizabeth's research. I do worry that online dating is corroding our ability to form real affinities with each other. And my experience was that I met someone who didn't have a lot of empathy. So when you build up a particular view of someone, when you've been chatting online, you've been chatting 24/7, you might have exchanged a couple of really flattering nudes, not that I did. But you meet this person and you have very high expectations of them. And when that person doesn't meet those expectations, an empathetic response might be, oh, well, that's a shame. And I think a psychopathic or a response that's less empathetic is, this is your problem. You have hurt me by not meeting my expectations. And sadly, that was my experience. I went on a date with a guy who I met on Tinder. We had, it was just the right side of dull, I would say. It was a perfectly standard evening. We went for drinks, we went for dinner. There was a little kiss at the end of the night. And the next day I got a 400-word text message.
Wow.
Saying
400 words on a text?
400 words on a text after one date, saying that he could love me and how lovely I was and how beautiful, and he would marry me like a shot if I was a slip of a girl.
Right. So it was the opposite of it's not you, it's me.
Yeah,
it's all you.
It's all you.
Okay, so let's see what Becky, our psychologist, thinks about this. Becky, you've actually worked with, I think, quite a few women.
Yeah, I've worked with a lot of people and even friends, and even in my own life. The online world it's just crazy how people can be, and I think Michelle has hit the nail on the head here about empathy.
Yeah.
That if someone lacks empathy, the level of mistreatment can be disastrous, because they don't have maybe as much respect for people because they've met them online.
Do they just not understand the hurt that causes?
If someone doesn't have high empathy, then they won't consider that at all. And what I say to clients and even friends is always speak to someone on the phone before actually meeting them, and really step back from that and do a screening on your emotions after that interaction. How do you feel when interacting with that person? And if any anxiety or any kind of negative responses come up, then there's your red flags. And I think people don't listen to their emotions enough when actually dating people online.
Everyone's vulnerable when they're looking for love, aren't they? Inevitably, and very happy to potentially ignore the red flags and think, well, maybe this is the one. Maybe I should be a bit more open-minded.
Yeah, and people ignore their emotions so much. Often clients of mine will say, oh, I felt really anxious and I thought I was just nervous because I was going on a date, when actually their anxiety was trying to tell them something.
Okay.
There's something wrong with this individual.
So it's trust your gut.
Trust your gut instinct.
Okay.
That is the #1 red flag.
Alice, you are on Tinder, and am I right to say you're actually looking for a husband? And
I think, or at least a relationship.
okay.
Yeah, rather than something casual.
Okay, and how are you finding it?
I think it's hard. Like, I've been on dates, but I guess I never really met anyone that I had that kind of romantic spark with.
Right.
And it's quite hard at the moment because my job takes up quite a lot of my time. So like over the past year or so, I haven't been on that many dates. But yeah, I think in general, like, you know, it is hard, you know, just to find someone you have that kind of connection with. And like these guys have been saying, like a lot of the time, people don't always behave well with the people that they meet. Like I know a lot of people that have kind of been ghosted by people that they've met on apps, that they've been seeing someone and then they've just kind of cut all contact.
Gosh, I mean, what does that do to you? So that's not happened to you, but it's happened to people you know.
It has, but kind of in situations where I wasn't that bothered. You know what I mean? Where I've been a couple of dates, but like I know people, they've been on like, you know, 3, 4, like 5 dates with someone that they really liked, or like, and then the person's just stopped talking to them out of nowhere.
So as you say, you're time poor, as a lot of us are, and that's behind, I guess, a lot of the rise in the internet dating. It's the best way
I think,
sometimes
especially
to meet
with
people.
apps, because a lot of the time I don't have time in the evenings to go on a dating site, so that's why things like Tinder are useful, because you can just go on, you can use it on the commute or just kind of before bed. I think that's kind of a lot of the appeal, because it's, you know, it kind of fits into our lifestyles.
You've got to be resilient with it.
Yeah.
Let's bring in Stacey, because Stacey, you have great news. You met the love of your life, I presume, on Tinder. You're getting married tomorrow. Tell us what happened.
So I was on and off Tinder for about 2 years. You know, don't get me wrong, there was a couple of not so great experiences, some not very great dates, but just, you know, persevered, and then met John about 3.5 years ago on Tinder. And just really randomly, the very next day, he ended up at my workplace without actually knowing that I worked there. And so we were forced to physically meet in person before we'd actually arranged a date. So we kind of knew then that we needed to arrange a date. And 2 years later he proposed, and 3.5 years later we're getting married. And
I mean, obviously you're on TV talking about the fact that you met your future husband on Tinder. Have you always felt that you could be completely open about that? I mean, internet dating is now so common, but there would have been a time when people wouldn't have necessarily wanted to say, when they're describing how they met, that it was on the internet.
Yeah, I think when we first met, I was very coy about it. I was kind of like, let's not tell my family that we met on Tinder. I was a bit embarrassed about it, but actually as time's gone on and we've proven that, you know, this can work, and it's not necessarily always a bad thing to meet someone online. We have now been really open about how we met, and a lot of people think it's actually really good. They think it's great that you can meet that way. I also know a few other people that have since met that way, got married from meeting on Tinder. So, you know, it's taken a lot of the stigma out of it, and I think a lot of people now are more open to accepting that that's how people meet.
Charlene on email says she has also got married to someone who she met on Tinder. I'm watching the news and a particular story stood out to me, the Tinder story. I'd like to say I met my husband on Tinder. We recently got married in Romania in August. It was an amazing wedding, and Tinder, the app, was a great tool to bring us together. We're happy and have a business together. Therese on email says, I had 4 dates on Tinder, all were okay. The last is now my amazing partner of 3 years. Mavis on email, our daughter met her partner on Tinder, and after whirlwind romance, they married in Santa Barbara, USA. They celebrated their 2nd wedding anniversary in April. He's a lovely man, and they're so happy. An anonymous on email says, I think Tinder's like any app. If one uses it with precaution, it can be lots of fun. I met a wonderful man on Tinder. Now we're married and have a beautiful baby. Gosh, that's so many of you. Lisa on email says, I met on a different dating site called Loopy Love. That was 13 years ago. They're now celebrating 13th wedding anniversary. Did kiss a few frogs first, she says, but then she had them at the wedding. Eula on email, my best friend Katie just got engaged to this lovely man she met on Tinder. Actually, Becky, it's a miracle that these things, I mean, these sort of what could be very brief encounters with very little detail are leading to such good outcomes in so many cases.
It's not all doom and gloom. People can meet people in this way, and you just have to be really careful and look after yourself. And I think sometimes that eagerness and sometimes neediness can mean that people just ignore these red flags. But if people can actually do it with caution, then of course they can meet the love of their life just like they can in everyday life.
Okay,
as well.
so give us all straightforward, simple rules. If you're dating online, what do you need to look out for? What do you need to do?
Any type of bad behaviour, whether it's they're being too sexual too soon, or disrespectful, or putting you down rather than lifting you up. But really it comes down to how that behaviour actually makes you feel, and don't ignore your emotions. If you feel a strong negative emotion, that's not because of there's being something wrong with you, that's a sign that actually this person is mistreating you in some way.
Is there a right person for everybody? Because these people that are behaving badly, does that mean that they're going to be bad in any relationship?
If someone lacks empathy, they're not ready for a relationship because they can't treat someone right. And unfortunately, Michelle has experienced that. And I think that person needs to go away and do a bit of work on himself before he's ready to treat someone with respect.
We've had emails from, we had certainly a long email from someone earlier who described from a man who said he'd met women like this. Does it tend to mainly be men? Is that a totally unfair thing to say?
It can be both parties. I know I've heard some of Michelle's long 400 words, and I mean it was gaslighting because he was trying to come across as this really nice guy, but he was saying horrible things, and it was just such a short attempt to make him feel better about himself, but really that's short-lived. He probably felt better about himself for a second, and it's not a behaviour that's really going to serve him well, and it's just so unfortunate that you had to experience that.
Well, to be honest, I'm so glad that it happened when I was 30 and not when I was 20.
Yeah.
Because I was able to read that text and see some of the red flags, because you do, once you've been through a few relationships, you do know what abusive or coercive behaviour can look like, and I recognised it. And I was really upset and I was really angry, and I wrote a blog, put it online and forgot about it, and now it's got 500 million views.
Wow.
Because so many people have resonated.
Spot
Absolutely.
Good. All right, well, it's really great to talk to you all. Thank you all very much. And Alice, good luck with your quest. Wish you all the best. Thank you all very much indeed. Good luck tomorrow, Stacey.
Thank you.
And we did try to contact Tinder for a statement, but we didn't hear back.